segment, another episode of the Lighthouse Effect, brought to you by It's About the Kids Incorporated and the Smooth Finish. My name is Baldwin Hamilton Jr., and hey, we got a great special guest today, y'all. Some hot fire. A brother that has definitely poured into me and just showed me just how to be just part of the professional man that I am today. He's the Assistant Dean of Students at Dear Langston University. My dear friend, my brother, and Phi Beta Sigma as well. Brother Kavaris Sims. Brother,
Hey,
tell us a little bit more about yourself.
hey man, how you doing? Well, thank you for that warming introduction. I'm happy to be here. A little bit more about me, I guess. My name is Kavaris Sims again. Baldwin kind of touched on it. I am a native, spiritually and religiously, a native of Austin, Texas, Lone Star State, capital of Texas, capital city of Texas. I am a two-time graduate of Langston University. I've came to Oklahoma by way of a friend, by way of a mentor who got me here, and I started my academic journey here, then left to work back at home to be closer to family for a little bit in Texas. Decided to come back to pursue my PhD at OU, and so now I'm back and happy to be here. Happy to serve and happy to be in your presence right now, man. So thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for honoring us with your time as well, because I know you got a lot of stuff going on. I'm glad just that we got in there with God's timing, God's speed. So
Yes,
today, y'all, the fruit of this interview, we're going to be talking about upward mobility, y'all. It's something that just like I was exposed to through this brother right here. Just like it was kind of organically through Instagram, but it was just like it got my mind moving. And I think like it's something that all of us can use and that we can also just like, as far as just like our mindset moving forward, have in the back of our heads because it's bigger than us at the end of the day. So, brother, could you just kind of explain to just our audience what upward mobility means to you, and we can get into it like that.
It's interesting because it's all centered around, really, to me, and when I personalize this definition, upper mobility to me by definition is moving from point A to point Z, B, whatever that may be. So moving from a point A to a point C, but it's moving in a progressive way. And so whatever you determine as progressive, whatever you determine as success, that's what that mobility means. I don't want to generalize upward mobility because a lot of times, it's already overgeneralized, right? A lot of times when we talk about upward mobility, we're talking about success. So what's success mean? And we all know the social constructs of success. Get the degree, get the job, get the land $1 million, contract, get the money, right? And so, for me, it's a little different. For me, based off my interactions with upward mobility, is really defined by how you see your success. I think you determine what your success may be. And so by definition, in a general sense, upward mobility is the process in which one moves from, moving from a lower socioeconomic status or a lower class within our greater society and moving up that ladder and what that process may look like. In the context of this dialogue, in the context of what we've been talking about, we're using the upper mobility terminology in its most general sense, and that's just moving up the chain, moving up the class ladder, if you will, and what that process what that includes. And so that's my definition of it. Again, I don't want to generalize it, but for the sake of this dialogue, I think it's important that we have a better understanding of what that entails. So really, it's a ladder. And it's a ladder up the class chain and what that all includes. And people have their own experiences of how they go about social mobility, upward mobility. There's challenges that are associated with individuals, no matter what class you in. More specifically, the lower class is a bit more challenging to move up that chain because there's little evidence to show that a vast majority of people who come from lower socioeconomic communities or the quote unquote lower class move up that chain because there's extraneous variables, but there are real life situations that occur that impedes on one's ability to move up that chain. So that's a very long definition, but in so many words, that's what upper mobility means to me. when I think about the context in its most purest way and form.
And that just made such a connection with me because it's just like I feel like in a way that I lived it, and like there's different ways that like it can be expressed because it is like you're saying it's objective because it's just like it's different experiences of different people.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's not a variable that can be generalized into you're in this class, this is how you move up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we have to kind of put that in the back of our head that we have to be able to move up and look at our options and weigh them in the best way possible. And it's about the right choices.
Yeah.
And so, like,
And then,
tell us a little bit more. Let us know a little bit more.
I think, and you're right. I think so. So there's a notion that's associated with our global society, and I'll take our national society. Let's say the United States of America, right? And so you take the United States of America, and there's the notions of the pursuit of happiness and the quote unquote American dream. And I use that term very loosely because the American dream, based on how our societal structure is set, there's only a few, or there's only a certain pocket of people who truly benefits from a quote unquote American dream in its most standard set. Now, anybody and everybody, right, can, according to American ideals, can achieve the American dream. The part that they don't talk about is how, based on where you start in that American dream, how that journey may look for you.
Freeze! Go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe real quick.
You are now watching The Lighthouse Effect.
I think it's important to note that, and you mentioned the upper mobility. There's the author. There's an author I was included in a book where she used my story in a book, and her argument was that, granted, upper mobility does exist. It's important to know that upper mobility looks different, statistically, physically, emotionally. It looks different based off where you stand in the class, in the state of classes, right? If you're lower class, your trajectory to an upper mobility may look completely different than a middle class. If you're middle class, your upper mobility trajectory will look completely different from a lower class. If you're upper class, your upper mobility, because it may be still something that you want to achieve, your upper mobility may look completely different, from somebody in the other two classes. And so I can only speak from my experiences and where I am in my trajectory on that upper mobility notion. One, decisions for anybody who comes from these lower socioeconomic or spaces, decisions are extremely hard. The reason why decisions for this group is extremely hard is because most of the decisions that you have to make do not coincide with anything that you see on a day-to-day. So how somebody from a middle class family can say, you know what, all you got to do is submit an application and you can get into that. You can get into that university. Or all you got to do is to submit your financial aid and you can get the financial aid. While those general statements may work for that group, they don't apply in my reality. So based off what you communicated, all I got to do is submit the application. Well, if all I got to do is submit an application, let's talk about a few things. One, I don't know how to complete the application. Two, I don't know anybody else within close proximity of me who's ever completed the application. Three, when you talk about the financial aid piece, well, my mom doesn't have a job. My mom never applied for taxes. My mom is on government assistance. My dad is on this. So even in its most general state, that decision-making process when you're in a different class, and I'm talking my class in general, those are brave steps, right? And to somebody outside of that class, that may seem like, black and white. It's just black and white. You submit the app, you get it accepted. That's simple, but it's really not that simple. Another thing that acknowledges that something as fundamental and so emotionally attached to your spirit, something as simple or as normal as family, are kind of this. Those are the kind of decisions you have to make when you were in like this, because you got to understand, if I'm the only person in my family to do this, that means my journey will be done in a silo. That means I can't call back and ask for support because nobody back home understands what I'm trying to do, right? That means that in most cases, if I need financial support, they can't give me financial support because in a lot of ways, they don't have the finances to even assist me. another thing is, and so with that comes a lot of emotional distress. With that comes a lot of, anxiety, depression. It's the process of mobility. So I want to be clear that these decisions are not the same, right? And so here's what I will say. It's a very cliche statement in a quote, but it's real. Anything worth having is worth sacrificing. For anybody to move up the ranks of upper mobility, there is a huge sacrifice that comes with these decisions. Because in most cases, in order for you to change, so I have a quote that I say, success and change go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. If you always do what you always did, you will always be who you always were. That's by one of my mentors who passed away, Brother Pitts. But the reality is, for somebody who comes from an environment where the American dream of upper mobility was never a part of the equation, every decision they make for change is a huge sacrifice, because a lot of times what that requires is for that person to change completely. You cannot do the same or be the same, because everything that you knew or everything that you know of is not going to get you to where you want to be. And so that comes with so it's separation anxiety. You learn that you can't be around the people that you love dearest. You learn that you can't even be around your neighborhood. You learn that you got to completely segregate or remove yourself from environments to which you've known all your life. And that comes with backlash. So people tell you changed. They tell you ain't the same. They tell you think you better, right? They tell you they think you better than everybody, when in reality you're not. It's just they're outside of the context or the paradigm in which you're trying to go. And they don't understand. And it's not that they don't love you, and it's not that they don't care. It's just they don't get it. They don't know. They cannot be a reference. They can't be a part of that. So that decision-making process is extremely hard for individuals who come from my environments, because it requires you to change your mind, your emotional response, everything about your life to get to where you need to go.
We are It's About the Kids Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates out of Dallas, Texas.
Our mission is to focus on the kids of today who will become the youth of tomorrow and the adult of the future. Today, tomorrow, the future.
Empowering the community, one family at a time.
And so let's take you and I, right? So let's take I'll speak for me. I don't want to speak for you, but let's speak for me. I come from a fairly impoverished community. I come from an area where achievement is not a thing, right? And so most people in this space, right, these are individuals who, because of the conditions in which they live, they decided to make certain decisions about where their life should be and their trajectory in life and what that all, looks like. And so for somebody to look outside, to look outside in, and to look outside of my own circumstance and see that, okay, in my current state, in my current conditions, right, I know or I feel that I deserve better. I deserve to have a piece of the American pie, whether that's finances, whether that's success, whether that's education, whatever that may be, family, whatever that may be, whatever the quintessential definition of American dream means to you, when means in its general sense, when I looked around in my conditions and I looked outside and I looked at it from a very, from my retrospect and how I was viewing the world around me, nothing about that American dream was representative in my community. And so what I started doing is I started aspiring to pursue that quote unquote American dream. Now, the interesting thing about, were you about to say something? I didn't know if you were about to say
I'm about
something.
to ask you a question. I was thinking within what you're talking about, what was the first question you asked yourself when you because everybody's thinking there's this big road. Everybody's trying to go the same way. It's like a big funnel, like you're saying. You're seeing either sports or entertainment, but you're saying you're looking outside that. So what was the first question that you had to answer to say that I'm going to go in this direction rather than with everybody else? Okay,
so one of the first things was educational attainment. And how I felt. And at the time, I looked around and I noticed that nobody really from my community nobody from my community was graduating from high school, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the first notion. And to me, at least based on my experiences when I was in class, I didn't feel like the content was hard. It was just one of those things where you just got to do it. Contrary to what's going on in your environment and what's going on at home, you just got to get it done. So that was the first thing. And then another thing that came to me and I would ask myself this at a very young age: is this it? Like, is this all that can be achieved? Because I got uncles, cousins, people who are older than me, people that I at the time looked up to, and there was a cycle, right? I saw these people leaving out of high school or dropping out of high school, going into the streets. They may make a little money in the streets doing whatever the streets told them to do to make ends meet. They would go to prison. They would get kicked out of school if they tried to go to college for like sports or whatever that was. But ultimately, what I saw looking in was you would go somewhere, you would make some money, you would start an experience somewhere, and then you're right back to where you started. And so for me, I questioned the cycle. But the question was, is this enough? And are these people, quote unquote, the people that I grew up with, are these people making the right decisions? And if they are, what are those decisions? And if they're not, what decisions need to be made to ensure that I don't repeat the same cycle? So that was the questions at a very early age. Those were the kind of questions that I was asking myself. Is this enough? Is there more out? And honestly speaking, the answer was yes, because if you journeyed about 15, 20 miles down the street, or you went to another zip code or another area, the world already told you, or the American dream, or the depictions of it already told you there was something better. The problem is I didn't have a reference. So I had to take what everybody else is doing and create my own sense of, okay, if I do this, that means it leads to there. So I'm not going to do that. And instead, I'm going to go seek some other options to see if these options will lead me in a different direction.
Sure.
That's a very long answer. Again,
that's the point that we needed to get to, though. Like, you got to be willing to break the cycle.
Yeah.
And look towards the bigger picture rather than what's the smaller in front of you, because everybody's doing the small stuff that's in front of you. But if you think about the bigger picture stuff, like you were thinking about, what were some bigger picture things that you were doing after you got your mind right? As far as like the question answer, like, I'm not trying to go where my cousins and them going. I'm not trying to go where them going. I'm trying to go. Like, what did you like? What were the actions that followed the questions? The actions that followed the questions.
That's an interesting question, because truthfully, I mean, I had no reference, outside of the people that I saw growing up. And so I think my only metric of success was what my first metric was. And so so I guess my goals and aspirations never started with a big dream, because big dreams didn't exist where I was from. Well, I take that back. Big dreams were professed where I was, but no, I'd never seen anybody acquire the dream. And so for me, my first thought was, well, let me not focus so much on a big dream. Let me focus on these smaller things first. And so the first thing was, man, I need to get out of high school. So at the time, honestly speaking, that was the first one, because again, as I stated, around this time, nobody was graduating from high school. It wasn't a thing, right? Everybody wanted to either sell drugs, be cool, be rappers, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm an avid hip hop fan, so go for it. Whatever that may be, that's what they chose. And so first step for me was, can you graduate from high school? Boom, graduated from high school. It happened. The next thing was, well, if you're smart enough to graduate from high school, then brother, you got to be smart enough to go to college. Boom, go to college. Okay, cool. College happened. I expand just like you expand when you came to college. And so my palette expanded a little bit. So at the time, my vision was simply focused on, the epicenter of my reality, which was my neighborhood. So when I got to college, it expanded a little bit more. So now I'm looking at it, okay, so now it's bigger than just, the high school degree. Man, I can get a college degree. I can get a job. I can go to school some more and get a master's. I can do this. I can do that. I can build. So now let me change my palette a little bit. Let's change how I view everything else, and let's create new goals. Now it was never a lot. It's like, I can tell myself, like, I can say a big dream. I can tell myself, hey, you know what? By the time I'm 40, I want to be a millionaire. I can tell myself that. But before I become a millionaire, I got to learn finances. So my first goal in that is, okay, let me master finances. If I have $20 in a month, how do I stretch $20 in a month, right? And so the large dream, which everybody has, the large and the big dream, for me, it was me learning how to put these dreams in small pockets so I can achieve the larger dream in a gradual way. And so I think, and so what what that did for me was before I can. So we'll take the statement that I made about a millionaire. Before I become a millionaire, I need to first learn how to manage money, the money that I have. Because if I have $1 million and I already don't know how to manage money, when I get $1 million, I'm not gonna manage it. It's just gonna go. And so I started with the small things. So the small things with me is first you need to get your emotional response together. So it may sound small, but in an environment where survival is the only, is the key to everything that you do, how you respond to things is very aggressive, because, and Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about this a lot. The reason why you see a lot of brothers and sisters who come from my kind of environments, and they're robust and they're reactionary and they're over the top and they're physical. It seems like the only way that they know how to respond to conflict is through aggression, through physical, physical violence, whatever that may be. Ta-Nehisi Coates, he outlines this amazing depiction of that. It's because when you're in a survival instinct, the only thing that you have is your body. And if I don't have equity, I don't have money, I don't have anything, I have my body. What comes with my body? That's my respect. That's my pride. That's my ego. That's all that. And if I feel like you're interrupting any one of those things, then I'm going to put the only thing that I have on the line, which is my body. And that is the first thing I had to learn. I had to learn that I didn't have to be emotionally responsive to everything. Really, the lesson was on the other end of the emotion, learning how to channel that, take information, take guidance. If somebody acts aggressively towards me, or they threaten the only thing that I know and know how to protect, my body, then learning how to step outside of that space and learning how to navigate that. For me, that was really the first lesson, because you may not see it now, but growing up, man, I was a fighter. I was somebody who didn't take no jazz from nobody. If you said something crazy to me, I would respond. And so for me, that was a language. That was a way of communicating, because everybody else communicated that way. So I had to learn how to master that. And so that's just one example. So I went from that to, how do I remain consistent? How do I channel, how do I deal with, depression, anxiety, blah, 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 whatever that means. How do I become a better writer? How do I become a better emailer? How do I become a better reader? All of that I had to learn in small pockets to get to a space where I felt comfortable. And I'm still working on it, moving into my larger dream or whatever the larger goal was.
And so with this goal setting mindset and just like the strong, like I could just see the strong organization. Like how does someone like kind of start in that? Like begin to kind of break down and conceptualize. Do you write it down? Like as far as like in a planner, or like can you start with a simple piece of paper and some pencil? Like is it that simple? Is that easy, or is it like, hey, I'm talking about
yes and no. Yes and no. I think it's trial and error. I think so I don't want to. I try to yield back. I try to yield or refrain from creating general approaches to how people manage whatever they manage. The honest to God truth, man, you manage how you manage. It's just trial and error. So you can't say you can't follow tasks or be organized by way of creating a list if you never created a list and tried to stick by it. Have you consciously made the decision that, okay, I'm gonna do a planner for the day. I'm gonna get organized for the day, and I'm gonna knock everything out. I'm gonna make sure that everything within this window is completed by a certain time. If you didn't put 110% in that list, and you didn't practice and do it on a consistent basis, you don't know if it doesn't work because you didn't try. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's easy to push against something that you never tried before, especially if you don't give it 110%. If I didn't, what 110% is? 110% is, think about something that you wanted so bad, like you want it, like you knew for a fact that you wanted it, you needed it. It's something that you had to. And I guarantee you, when you thought back, you did everything in your power to make sure you got it right.
That and phone so, though, you pick your phone up, none of that. It was
all of that. You
to the side.
This was it. And so whatever that thing was, whatever excuses you had didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was accomplishing that goal. And if you enter every goal or every objective, if it's organization that way, then you learn that, okay, at least you will feel it. You know it internally, man, I put 110% into making sure I was organized, and it's still in this way. If it's a list, in this way, and it didn't work, you can consciously make that decision, like, okay, I know I tried it. Let me try something else. Right? Is it, it could be It could be notifications on the phone. It can be, I don't know, whatever works for you, you figure it out. But I try my best to avoid giving people generalized approaches, because every approach is different, and what works for you, right? I got a list. My preferred option is to have a list, and sometimes I forget to even look at the list, right? And so it's not a perfect system, but it's a system that works for me.
That's real. That's the answer we need. One that's not generalized. We need one that's real. And that's why, I like to have people that's real, Mr. Sims on this thing.
Yeah.
So just like
You can reach us on all social media platforms at It's About the Kids, or online at www.itsaboutthekids.org.
It's all good and not good.
Mentor a child and save a life.
Like, comment, subscribe.
I know you've been dropping them crazy points all day. Like I said, this brother's hot fire. So he's just like, is there any more as far as like something that people can, maybe even adults even gravitate to, as far as just like being aware of where you are in the socioeconomic status type of thing, and then trying to push forward and build a legacy rather than squandering. Like you said, you taught me, don't let a 5-minute decision affect something that can happen in the next 5 months. The next 5-month decision happen to affect the next 5 years. And so just teaching like a bigger picture mindset. What could be something that you could offer the community as far as like just something to have on their heads?
The journey is difficult by design. It's not meant to be easy, right? And so I got in a discussion with a brother about this yesterday. He was down on his luck. He was really going through tough times, and what he said was, and I'm not the most religious person, but what he said was, maybe God's telling me I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I said, well, no. I said, I don't know if that's what he's telling you. I said, well, what you got to realize is that the development is through the adversity process. You don't get the growth, or you don't get the result if it's handed to you. Because if I always handed you $20, you won't know how to work for $20. So if you don't know how to work for the 20, you don't know how to make 40. You don't know how to make 60. You don't know how to make 80, because you didn't learn how to make $20 the first time. And so I said all that to say, the process is hard by design. Don't give up on it. Right? Now, be willing to change and be willing to make the sacrifices needed to achieve the goal, but it's hard by design. It's not meant to be easy. So don't get down on your luck, right? Don't allow the adversities to, you're going to stress about it. You're going to, you may aspire to do something and it don't work the first time or the second time or the third time, but understand that it is difficult by design, because everybody's not supposed, especially if it's a goal worth achieving, everybody's not supposed to do it, because if they did, everybody would be doing it, right? So the reality is, it is tough by design. Stick to your guns, walk through it, take it step by step. If it's a large goal, break those goals up into smaller pockets. But you can't, because like I said, and we always talked about, Baldwin, you can't master big things if you don't master the small things first. And so you got to be able to master small things first and take your time and be diligent. If the small thing is, I need to ensure that the minute my alarm clock go off, I am up and moving. Something as small as that, right? Small things, master small things before it'll get you to the big things. So whenever you're ready for the larger platform, you're good to go. You've already done the work. You already know how to navigate the smaller tasks, which will get you to where you need to go. Look at it like a stepping stone, right? Time management, perseverance, grit, and the more you move up and you master those steps, the higher you go, and you ready for whatever it is God puts in your on your plate.
Yes, sir. I received that, and I just thank you so much again for your time and just like
man,
just putting us on the right like mindset. Thank you so much for just like pouring into us here at the Lighthouse Effect, and contributing so much to just like our cause and just trying to enlighten and empower the community as well as educate. So, brother, this has been another segment from the Lighthouse Effect, brought to you by the Smooth Finish. Here with Kavaris Sims. And thank you so much for watching and supporting. We would love for you to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And you can see more empowering content. Hey, thank y'all so much. Have a blessed day. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Peace out.